Hey there. I'm Tomas Michaud, and this is Ami Fields. Welcome to Real Guitar Live. Glad you could make it here. Hey, Mark.
Yep.
Hey,
Hi,
Shulamit. I've got a presentation for you here today. But before we start, let me just, for anybody that's on here that's new, so far I haven't seen anybody new, but hi, Tim. We're going to go through a short presentation first. Sometimes I do that, sometimes not. Then I'm going to answer questions. I'll start with the questions that are pre-submitted, which I don't see one right now, but that's okay. Please ask questions in the chat, and I would love to answer your questions, both about my presentation and anything else guitar-related. I don't know, even if it's vaguely guitar-related, that's fine with me.
Or ook-related.
Or good point. Uke-related. Ook-related. Did I say that right?
Yeah, you got it.
If I glance over here once in a while, that's because I can see Ami there. I feel like she's in the room over there. So at the end, I'm going to hold a drawing. This is for members of my Real Guitar Success membership. We have a system where they get a lesson every day during the weekdays, and if they complete all 20 lessons in a month, they get entered into a drawing. Now, last month I had a technology glitch and couldn't get the people who had completed the lesson, so I've added those to this month, and actually I'm going to give away 2 gift cards this month just to show it up. So $50 Amazon gift cards. Let me get started with my presentation. This is something I've been wanting to do for a while, so I'm glad that there's an opportunity here today. I want to talk about what I call the 1-4-5 progression. For a lot of people, it's a mystery, and for others, it's just a great tool. But I think it is understated. This has made a big difference for me in being able to function in the world of music, both in terms of playing with other musicians as well as just writing and learning songs on my own. So when I talk about 1-4-5, I'm talking about chord progression. What it means is that we've numbered the chords in key, and the first chord is 1, the fourth chord is called 4, and the fifth chord is called 5. Now, I have a little graphic that I'm going to bring up. I think I got this down. This graphic thing is a bit new for me. Try that now. It worked! Ha! It's on the screen. I know, if you're not accustomed to talking about 1-4-5, this looks like a big mess. Let me start with the top part where it looks like a bunch of Roman numerals. That's what they actually are. Roman numerals for the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And it's common to use Roman numerals in the world of music because it solves a couple issues. You'll notice that there's a capital Roman numeral and a lowercase Roman numeral. That's kind of telling you which ones are minor and which ones are majors. So the first one is a 1, the next one is a 2, right? And it's a lowercase 2. That means in the key, the 2 chord is just naturally minor. So let me start with the first one. I'll just start with the key of A because it's on top. The key is A. Then each note in the key, forget the minor for a second or any of the stuff after the note, each of the letters are the notes in the key. That's what I'm trying to say. So A is the first note, B is the second note, C sharp in the key of A. There's a couple of sharps, the C sharp and the F sharp. D is the fourth note, E is the fifth note, and E is the sixth note. Seventh note is F sharp, and then of course it all starts over. Sixth is F sharp, seventh is G sharp, then we go back to A. That would be 8. By the way, from one note to the other is called an octave. So it's the same note, A to A. If you go through all the notes, it's just one octave higher, octave meaning 8. Now, we're going to number each of those notes, and I realize this is a little review for some of you, but let me just make sure we're on the same page. We're going to number each of the notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't need to go to 8. And then build chords on each of those notes. We're taking notes only out of that scale. In other words, for the A chord, the number 1 chord, we're only taking notes from the scale, and it would be A, C sharp, E. That would make the one chord. Basically, every other note makes the chord. So for the B chord, the 2 chord, we're taking every other note, B, D, and F sharp. I skipped, each one, and so on. And that way you get a chord for every single note in the key. Now we can, instead of just saying the note is the one, we can say the chord is the one chord. So now we've gone full circle. We're back to the 1 chord being A, the 2 chord is B minor, the 3 chord starts with a C sharp note, is C sharp minor. By the way, that's a pattern. In every major scale, if you build a chord off of each of the notes, they're going to fall just like this. That's why I can make this chart. They're going to fall major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and that little circle means diminished chord, the 7th chord in the key. So, right, now we have the foundation. We're talking about specifically the 1 chord, the 4 chord, and the 5 chord. Now, you've noticed I've also highlighted the 6 chord because that's the next step. That's the next common progression, is to add the 6 chord. Let's ignore that for now. The 1, 4, 5 is plenty and is a great foundation to expand off of that. So why would you want to, what makes so important the 1, 4, and 5 chord? Now, I have a bunch of things, and I'm hoping Ami could maybe add her own twist to it. First of all, for a guitar player, learning the 1, 4, 5, particularly in the keys that are most common for guitar, is a more efficient use of your practice time than just practicing random chords. If you practice the 1, 4, 5s in keys, you can learn a lot of songs very quickly. Why? Because many, many songs are created with just the 1, 4, and 5 chords. And then a whole bunch more are mostly 1, 4, and 5 chords with a few extra chords added here and there, usually in the bridge or in a little longer progression like the 1, 4, 5, and 6 chords. It also, when you're learning songs and you're trying to figure out the key of the song, part of that, the key to learning the key, pun intended, is figuring out the chord progression, how the 1, 4, and 5 relate to each other. So, and there's a reason for that. The nature of a 1, 4, 5 progression strongly makes a movement away from the home chord, the 1 chord, back to the home chord. So I'm going to play something so you can attach that to your hearing. I'll do A just to be consistent here. 1, 4, and 5. Let me show you my guitar too. You guys want to see my guitar? I really do have a guitar here. There it is. Okay, small but effective. Let me just make it bigger for a minute. How to make it bigger? That's the question. Oh, got it. So, just for my guitar for a minute. 1, 4, and 5. Listen for a minute. Here's the 1 chord. 4 chord. If I stop there, it feels incomplete. That's because I've kind of set it up, 1, 4, a little path that naturally to our hearing, probably because we're socialized with, music that does this a lot, wants to go back to the 1 chord. So the nature of a 1, 4, 5 progression is to create movement going away from the 1 and back to home. And that movement we found pleasing, just psychologically pleasing. We feel tension and release. To 5. To 5. 4. 1, 5. Now, the next chord's the 1 chord. It just feels like it's got to start over, back to the 1 chord. So, good music, or music that people like, generally has a sense of tension and release. and the 1, 4, and 5 chord are kind of the base level for creating that tension release. Not the only way of creating it, but sort of the basic foundation. And then you add little subtleties and some different things to add more variety and interest, particularly, once you get past basic rock and roll. So many songs are made with 1, 4, 5. I didn't realize it when I first started. All of this, like Chuck Berry stuff, or basic blues. It's based on a basic 1, 4, 5. 4 chord, back to the 1 chord. 5 chord, 1 chord, 1 chord, and 5 chord. And that starts to cycle over, makes you want to go back to the 1. Now, another layer to that. Well, first of all, if you want to change keys, a great way, if you want to change keys easily, you could get a chart like this one, which, by the way, I'll give you access to that if you don't already have it. If you're a member of Real Guitar Success, you already have access. But I'll put a link in the show notes so anybody can get that. A better way, right, than having to go find the chart and look and then memorize the chords is just practice the 1, 4, 5 in the common keys. And then if you want to change keys, you just go to 1, 4, 5 in another key. Now, first of all, a lot of songs are made with just 1, 4, 5, but even if it's beyond 1, 4, 5, it gives you 80%. Let's say the song uses 1, 4, 5 in the key, and you just figure out the other chords. It's a big leap than just starting from scratch. So let me show you an example of this. I'm in the key A. I'm making up a song. Oh, how about this? How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Blowing in the wind, Bob Dylan. Now, I want to change that low for my voice. Let's go B, C. I know 1, 4, 5 in C. 1, 4, 5. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Much better. But I want to, just for practice, C. Let's go to the key of D. I know 1, 4, 5 in the key of D. D, A, D, E, F, G. Okay. D, G, A. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Ooh, I like that even better. Hey, let's do the key of E. 1, 4, 5. E, A, B, 7. I know that one. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Okay, easy. And again, even if the song has more than the 1, 4, 5, a lot of songs are just a few chords beyond 1, 4, 5. And once you have the 1, 4, 5, it's much easier to make that next leap. Did you notice that last song I played a B7 chord instead of a B chord? So the main reason I did that is I didn't want to play a bar chord. B, I don't have a good way of playing that as an open chord. But it brings up another issue. It is reasonably common when you get to a 5 chord to make it a 5 chord into what we call a dominant chord. And then a simple way to say that is it's just a 7th chord. So instead of a B chord, the dominant of that would be B7, dominant 7th. Now, psychologically, it adds more tension. A 7th to a chord makes it feel even more like it's got to move. So it's a way, traditionally in classical music, it was a way to make it have more power getting back to the 1 chord. And that's all transferred over into pop. And by the way, all this stuff, originally, I analyzed it in forms of classical music. That's part of my college education. But before I graduated, quickly realized it applies to almost every style of popular music. Matter of fact, every style, because popular music is all based on the same psychological kinds of concepts of tension and release. So blues, pop, rock, country, jazz, all these things use this same concept. It's not specific to classical music, and it's gone way past classical music. So just in case you were wondering, hey, does this theory stuff really apply? It does. That no matter what style of Western music you're playing, I don't know about other ethnic music, but definitely Western music. And I think everybody here is interested in playing some form of Western music. Now, I also wanted to mention that learning the 1-4-5s and understanding how it works, being able to identify them in songs, is a very big stepping stone to be able to understand other chord progressions because they're often based on that same concept of tension and release. So another common progression is the two. Let me see the. A B B. It's a 2-4-5. 2 no 2 1 2 5. Oh, how do we say it? It's 2-5-1, but I'm wondering if I got the order right. 2-5-1. Let's just go with that. 2-5-1 instead of 4-5-1. The 2 chord is kind of a substitution for the 4, and it works. It adds some variety. It's a minor chord. In the key A, it's B minor, and then the 5 chord B, E to 1. Used a lot in jazz, by the way, especially. You'll find jazz tunes a lot of times, they'll cycle through a variety of 2-5-1 progressions, and they start in one key, and they kind of cycle through several different keys doing that, establishing a different key, adding kind of like you're spinning out, and then it eventually comes back to the 2-5-1 in the key that you started with. So it brings it all back home. It makes for a more elaborate song, but it's once you identify them, it really simplifies what you're looking at instead of just a bunch of chords one after the other. Ami, do you have anything to add to that in terms of how 1-4-5 has worked for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. Can we change the camera so they can see me?
I think
I'm almost there. Hey guys. Okay. Awesome. So yes, I think learning the 1-4-5 chords is just like it's a game changer, really, especially for like ukulele. Like, as you know, we don't really have a big range on the uk, right? And so if you grab some of those common keys and understand the progressions, it's actually a big way to step towards learning how to play a song by ear. I have people who ask me all the time, like, how specifically, to learn a song by ear, and understanding the 1-4-5 progressions and being able to identify them is one way that you can do that. If you're able to play the songs a lot and identify them and understand kind of like where things lay, then it's just a matter of discovering what key the song is in. And eventually you'll start hearing these chords in relationship to each other and say, okay, that sounds like a 1-4 jump, or that sounds like a 1-5 jump. And they really are like super duper common. And even the ones that, like, for a lot of pop music, it's going to use some variation of either a 1-4-5 or, like Tomas said, like the 2-5-1 is a big one. And the nice thing is that if you really understand those ideas, then it makes it easier if you're trying to learn a song by ear, because at least you have some basis to start from, especially when it comes to pop songs versus just like, I have no idea where I am or what we're doing. Another thing is that for any of you that sing, this is like the game changer, because if you discover that a song that you're singing and playing is a 1-4-5, then the world is your oyster. As you guys just saw, Tomas was able to transpose it into 3, 4, 5 different keys, versus needing a capo, right? Where all of a sudden you're going to have to clamp on your guitar to change the key of a song. If you know it's a 1-4-5 and you know those chords, then you can just change the key of the song and still follow the same pattern.
That was a really good point about ear training. What I've found, and which I sort of take for granted, and I realize you brought it to my surface of my consciousness, is that I don't often have to think about the 1-4-5. I hear it in my head.
Exactly.
And that's much more valuable than intellectually thinking, what's the 4 chord, what's the 5 chord, and memorizing. But you got to start there. I mean, that's where I started. Practicing and listening and playing songs with 1-4-5. And over time, I could just I can hear a step up and what each of those chords will be.
Exactly.
And then I've extended that to like a 1-6-4-5 progression and other progressions that I use commonly.
Yeah, and I'd like to just share a tip. For those of you that are familiar with the show and watch the show, you know that, like, in general, I kind of always come from the place of like the ear and like just the feeling and the natural, just because that's how music has always made sense to me. When I was in college, I took a really fantastic ear training course with one of my favorite professors, and we used to identify intervals, right? So that's meaning the sound difference between a 1 and a 2 and a 1 and a 3 and a 1 and a 4. And doing that was a really great way for me to isolate the sounds and understand what those intervals sounded like. So now when I'm trying to find the key of a song, or if I want to transpose it, I listen for the root note. What is the bottom line note that everything kind of comes back to? So if I know that da 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 and I hear ba ba, that's a 1 to a 3, a major third, and so that helps me identify where I'm at. And then you can literally just smack that chord on there if you're trying to find the chord progression. So if you're able to identify, I'm hearing that the root note is going from a 1 to a 4 or a 1 to a 5, then just kind of follow the recipe Thomas was talking about, and you'll be able to know if it's a major or minor chord. And boom, you just figured out the song. Way easier said than done.
Yeah, it does sound simple when she says it that way, but yeah, that I come from a different place, and what I mean by that is, Ami, I think, is much more natural in terms of using her ear, and I think is more naturally hears the music than I did. I came from more of the intellectual approach. My passion was chemistry and science, and when I started learning music, to me, I tried to, like anything else, you try to, if you're good with a hammer, you see everything as a nail, and I tried to intellectualize it and see the formulas and the patterns, which are all useful. But over time, I went to junior college, and I actually took the ear training classes over and over. I got a C the first time. I got up to a B. The third time, the professor said, "No, you don't need to take it again. Let's go on to the next class and go there." Yeah, and I took that class over and over because I really realized how important it was, and it's really made a big difference. Now I can kind of balance the two, and I realize that when I'm composing music, go with the hearing first, at least in my head. I hear the notes, and then use the intellect as a kind of a support system, not as a first go-to.
Yeah. Thomas, do you mind if I share a simple exercise that I recommend for my students? I'd like to just share it. It's a simple interval training exercise. And this is helpful for finding keys, but and it's like good for your fingers too, I guess, if you want to go there. But really, this is a good one to do to really start understanding intervals and how they sound. So because you're not really going to just like hear it in music, and if you don't know where to start, then how are you going to practice this, right? So I'm going to show it on a C major scale, just because it's super simple. Okay, so I'm going to show it on C major scale on the ukulele. You can do it on any instrument, but the notes of a C major scale, for those of you that don't know, are C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, right? So you can start super simply, and you're going to say the numbers with the notes as you play them. So here's my 1, and here's my 2. So that's called a major second. Major second, 1, 2. Now I'm going to skip that second note and go 1, 3. 1, 3. So now I can hear ba ba. Now 1, 4. 1, 4. To help remember the 1, 4, my professor used to always say, "Here comes the bride. Here comes the bride." So that's a good one to remember. So 1, 4. 1, 5. 1, 6. 1, 7. 1, 8. And you can take it backwards, but that's another theory thing. But if you do it now and you just say the numbers, that's a good place to start. And then see if you can actually name the intervals that you're playing to help drive that into your brain too. For those of you that like to sing and play, absolutely sing and play while you do this, because this is going to help your ear. Now I'm going to go major second, major third. Now the fourth and the fifth are called perfect fourths and perfect fifths. There's no such thing as a minor or major fourth or fifth. Perfect fifth, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, perfect octave. Now, if you want to get really fancy, you can go backwards. Ah! Okay, and those ones backwards are a little different. They're actually minors going backwards. So minor second. So bum bum. That's called a minor second interval. Minor third. Minor third. Bum bum. Yeah, and then perfect fourth. Perfect fifth. Minor six. Minor sixth. Minor seventh. Perfect octave. a little rough there. Haven't played it in a while. But the concept is, if you can identify those intervals, that's going to really help kind of train your ear to understand when you're hearing them, what you're actually hearing. So if you ever wanted to take a step in the direction of being able to play by ear or sing a song easily, that's a good place to start. So I just wanted to share that.
Okay, back to the chord progression thing. A couple more tips. Let me go to my guitar. If you're playing bar chords, there's an interesting little pattern, and I'd say more than interesting. I find it really valuable, especially when I play electric guitar. I go to this. You can visually see the 1-4-5 very easy. Here's a 1 chord, a G bar chord. The 4 chord is here, and the 5 chord is here. So that's a C and D. But I don't care about the names. When I'm playing, I don't think, oh, that's a G, a C. I know this on bar. Oh, I want to change it to a key of A. How about A sharp? I don't even care what the names of the chords are. It's so easy. F. So for bar chords, 1-4-5 really is just physically very easy on the guitar. Now the other thing, I'm going to go back to my little chart, is a chart like this does help, at least when you're learning. And oh, good, everybody can see it. I've expanded the chart a little bit. This one also includes minors, which I want to get to. So I would just basically use the chart. I would look down what key I'm in if I wanted to change keys, and I'd start where I was at, go to the key I want to go to, C, and then just find the 1-4-5 in that key. In this case, I went to C is the 1 chord, F is the 4 chord, and G is the 5 chord. If I wanted to play in the key of F, I'd start with the F chord, go over to the B flat, yeah, it's the bar chord, and the C. It's the same if you're extending the progression. 1-6-4-5 is a common progression. F, 6, 4, 4, 5. Let's make it a 5 with a 7th on it, and back to F. Now, minor has the exact same formula with just a couple of little things. 1-4-5 in the minor key starts with a minor chord. Now you can see my chart. I'll start with A minor, which is a common minor key. The 4 chord is D minor, and the 5 chord is E minor. You see, we changed over to minor, but here's the key. It is very, very common in our popular music, Western popular music, I should say, to change that 5 chord to a 7th chord. Psychologically, it's more powerful. It has more draw. A minor chord doesn't have that draw going back to the 1 chord, but a 7th chord does. In other words, in the key of A minor, that would be E7. So listen to this. You've heard the sound. And in the key of B minor, 4 chord, 5 chord, 5-7, and so on. Of course, if you had this chart, you could just follow the chart, but it's worth remembering a few of the minor keys too. A minor is very common for guitar players, and E minor is another one. And that's why I use the B7 with the E. I would also use it with E minor. To A minor, B7. Oh, I changed to a major key. And I do that in songs sometimes. I'll end on the major chord to give it a kind of a dramatic uplift. Okay. So, any more questions on the 1-4-5 progression mystery solved?
We do have a few questions of folks live who've thrown them in, so let's go for it. So Shulamit says, is there a let's see, what number is that? Is there a 1-4-5 progression in minor keys? Yes, we got there. I think she asked that before we were able to jump to that part.
I actually saw that. That's what inspired me.
Yeah, to do the minor ones. Yeah. I think actually that's the only one that's come in. But if you guys have more questions, now's a good time to put them in the chat. And if you just put question before you put it, it makes it easy so I can get it right away and we can answer it.
So I do see Noor has asked a question about he's just started playing guitar. And
yes.
You switch from acoustic to electric.
Yeah, so I just switched from acoustic to electric. Should I buy a practice amp or an audio interface?
Wow. I'm thinking this out. My first impression is that's a personal thing. They both would work great. So if it were me, I'd buy both. Now, that may not be an option for you, but there is the advantage to both. The amp is going to be portable. That means you could, in your house, you can move it from room to room. If you want to play with somebody else, which I do, I'm going to have an amp. I mean, I'm not going to have an electric guitar without an amp. That just wouldn't work for me ever. But the audio interface is what's going to get the sound into my computer. Oh, I could use a microphone and put it to the amp, but an audio interface is more efficient, and I do a lot of recording too, so I'm going to want something to get into my computer. Here's the thing. There are a lot of amps nowadays, little teeny amps. I actually have one. Let me see if I can show you. Yeah. It's a Yamaha.
THR? That's a THR 10C is what that's called.
10C, it is. The C. The C means is the black one. A regular THR 10 is the gray, beige one.
Beige one, yeah.
It has an audio interface built in. So I can use it as an amp or plug it into my computer and directly use it within my DAW, digital workstation. digital DAW. Digital
audio workstation.
Audio, that was the A. Digital audio workstation. So that I can record basically and just go directly into my computer. By the way, there are some people, especially in rock, that really want the mic sound on the amps. They get a certain tonal characteristic. They don't want to go through a audio interface, and they want the sound of especially a good mic, a tube mic, or I don't play that style of music, but I know like ZZ Top. Yeah. One of my favorite rock bands a long time ago I read the recording process. They'd put the amp in a room and they record many times over using a mic on the amp, and they wanted that room sound in their recording. So that's a possibility.
Yeah, I was just going to say that Yamaha THR 10C, one of the reasons I know it so well is it's one of the best sellers in our store. It's a fantastic amp, and it has such a good sound, especially for the quality. We ain't getting none from Yamaha for saying this, but I just wanted to share. It's a really popular amp. It's a good one. And if you were looking for something smaller, there is just the THR 5A or the 5.
Yeah, smaller.
It is smaller. I believe that one has audio interface too, but double check on that. It may or may not, but it's also.
Yeah, I have both, but I don't know. I have to take a look. But I do prefer the sound of the 10.
Okay.
It is a little more pricey, but the quality of sound is quite a bit better. And I'm amazed, actually, for the size of the amp, how good of a sound it has.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a good question. And I was just a personal question, just so I'm a little bit more clear. An audio interface, is that just what makes it so that you can basically play into your computer with an electric guitar?
Oh, good question. See, that's something I take for granted. I do a lot of stuff with the computer. An audio interface is regardless of what it looks like, it's usually a little box, but there's a variety of forms. It's what turns your analog signal to digital, and you can put it in the computer and it shows up. It's stored on your hard drive and shows up in your digital audio workstation. So a lot of times, let me see if I have one handy. Nothing I can pull out. I have a more complex one. You can buy some for, I think even under $100.
Oh, cool.
And they're little boxes. Oh, you know what? You have one, Ami. That PreSonus little box.
Oh, my PreSonus.
Works and yours, you can plug in a guitar or a mic. It has a couple of volume controls, and it goes out there into your computer.
Now I understand. Yeah, and that's actually a cool one too, because theoretically, if you're getting an amp primarily for practice reasons and to be able to do that, then using the audio interface, you just plug your headphones into that and you can hear yourself playing.
And Tim mentions that there's also some cheap interfaces that work well. The prices have just keep coming down and down. Yeah. I just saw some the other day that were under $100. I don't know how good they are. They were BandLab. I use their software, Cakewalk. BandLab's. I'm talking like $50 for audio interface that, for all I know, works great.
Yeah. Oh, well, then that totally makes sense then to get both.
Yeah.
depends on where you are. If you're a beginner too, and you're just like kind of trying out the guitar, you want to think about kind of what your intention behind playing is and what you want to do with it.
All this said and done, and this is not your question, Noor, but I do recommend that if you're practicing on an electric guitar, you do get some way to hear it, whether
Yeah.
it's an audio interface, an amp, or even amplified headphones. Because I found that for me, when I first started playing electric guitar, I didn't realize I was hitting notes in the way that they weren't making a good sound because I couldn't hear
Yeah.
it just on the guitar. I went from acoustic to electric. And
Yeah.
I found once I started practicing on the electric with hearing it, there was a change to get the notes just right. It took me a while.
And there is a little step in between that I'll just mention for anybody that may find this useful called an amp plug. Vox makes them, VOX, and there are a couple of other brands that you can find. But it's literally it's an amp that's about this big. And it's got, a 1/4 inch, and you plug it into your guitar, and then you plug your headphones into that. So that way you can hear it. So if you are looking for something that's just like real simple, small and easy, that's a good one. If you're, going to be on the road and you want to take your guitar and be able to hear yourself play. Yeah, good. Let's go ahead and jump to the pre-submitted question, if that's okay, Thomas. And then those
Sure.
of you that are live, go ahead and ask any other questions that you may have about guitar or ook stuff. So this question is coming from Paul. Paul says, I seem to be able to play bass notes better with my fingers, but I love using my pick. Any tips for finding bass strings with my pick?
Good question, Paul. I would say I'm probably in the same boat. It's easier for me to find the bass notes with my thumb than it is with a pick. But I actually think this is a kind of a process that applies to a lot of things in learning guitar. The way to get good at using your pick to find bass notes is to practice it. And of course, there are some ways to practice better than others. But just practicing the 1, 4, 5 chord progression in a key, one at a time, I would start with, and practicing hitting the bass note. Go as slow as you need to go. And that's the thing that I see that throws a lot of students off. They're trying to go too fast, they make mistakes, and they keep making the mistakes over and over, and they're like programming themselves to make mistakes. Go slow and get it right most of the time, and then pick it up little by little. So you're programming yourself to hit the right notes, you just speed it up little by little. So start with, by the way, G's a good one to start with bass notes. It has a good bass notes to C, and start with the root note, practicing, and D's on the 4th string, and then back to G on the 6th string. Get to where you can play that very fast. Then try adding a couple of things that would kind of take it up a notch. Alternating bass notes. And practice that. I do have some lessons. I'll see if I can find at least one to add to the show notes, which start with one key, 3 chords, and then usually the ones that are more common. And then, of course, you can kind of take that and apply the same concept to other keys. I'd probably go to the key of C. That's another good one for bass notes. And key of D, maybe. The problem with D, that you start with this bass note that's not that bassy. That's why I like G. It's a good bass note. E, another one. You get that good bass note. E and G. Good bass notes, real bass
Good,
notes.
strong bass note. That's the one thing the ook is missing.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, you can put a drop G, but it ain't the same.
I started on mandolin. I think that was one of the driving forces to go to the guitar. I missed some bottom hand.
Yeah, good. Awesome. So if anyone else has any questions on that, be sure to put them in the chat. We have a question from Shulami. Do you use the same amp for an electric guitar as an acoustic guitar with a pickup? That's a great question.
Yes. And the answer is sometimes.
Yeah, depends on the amp.
Depends on the amp. Generally speaking, I'd prefer to have an acoustic amp for an amp that's designed for acoustic guitar, and an amp that's designed for electric guitar for electric. Because one of the main issues is acoustic guitar, you're going to build the amp in such a way it's going to not distort very easily.
Right.
You're going to use a type of a speaker and a type of electronics that you can turn up and not hear distortion. Now, of course, the smaller the amp, the less you're going to be able to turn up, but that's the overall concept. Also, acoustic guitar amps are going to have like reverb and some effects that may not be that useful on electric guitar. On electric guitar amp, you're going to want to distort, generally speaking, and you're going to want sometimes even built-in extra distortion so you can get it without turning the amp too loud. That's a common thing in electric guitar amps. And the other thing that you're going to want in an electric guitar amp is some effects like chorus and delay and things like that that are common in the world of electric guitar that people are used to hearing. That said, there are a lot of hybrid amps nowadays. So that Yamaha I showed you has a setting that works pretty well with acoustic guitar. But Yamaha also makes an acoustic guitar version of that with just a few tweaks to make it even better for acoustic guitar.
I think it's actually the THR-10 without the C that actually I know that it is. It's the THR-10, the beige version of the one Thomas is talking about that has like the modules to do a bass, an acoustic guitar, or an electric guitar. So a combo amp.
Bass is another one I'd prefer to have a separate bass amp because again, the bass amp is going to have a bigger speaker, heavy duty, no distortion, a couple of effects that are good for bass. But some people want an amp that kind of is multi-purpose, and you see Yamaha's serving the market.
Yeah, totally. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, that's a fair question though. I remember when I first started working at the store, I was like, is there a difference? I didn't know that there was, but it really does make a difference in the way that it sounds. It kind of depends on what you want to go for too. Okay, another question from Shulamit. This one's from me. Me, that's me. How do you play country music on the uke? Alternating bass notes doesn't really exist on the uke in standard tuning. Well, Shulamit, I don't. That's just me.
What bass notes?
What's country? No, I don't. So that's a totally fair question. I think we talked about it either last month or the month before. Essentially, if you're going to do some sort of bass line on the ukulele, I highly recommend getting a drop G string. That would mean that this string right here is an octave lower. So that way you have just a little bit more room to do something. That's step one. So get a drop G string on there. If you have a soprano uke like this size, I don't recommend putting a drop G. I mean, you can, they just kind of sound funny to me. Do your thing. It's not going to damage your instrument. But I'm not a big fan of it. I prefer to put a drop G on either my concert or my tenor. And my tenor ukulele is one that I have the drop G on now that I really enjoy. And so essentially what you would do, because those are the two lowest notes, is if you're going to do a bass line with some strumming stuff, you're going to just alternate between those two strings. Personally, if I'm going to play country music, I'm just going to make sure that I have a strum that's interesting enough, that's not going to like take away from the song. So let me think. I keep a close watch on this heart of mine.
Johnny Cash.
Wide open all the time. I keep the ends out for the tie that binds. Because you're mine.
Because you're mine.
So I just basically would make sure that I'm doing a bright and full sounding strum so it doesn't feel like it's taken away. Plus I'm singing. If you're, and Shulamit, I know that you're playing guitar, and I also know that you're probably doing some uke stuff too. I will tell you now, uke and guitar are two separate animals. I tell people all the time, ukulele does not grow up to be a guitar one day. It is its own thing, right? So keep that in mind as you're playing. The things that you're able to do on guitar, you can replicate some of it on ukulele, but that's just not the culture of the instrument, right? So something like country, doing what I did, just kind of a light, cute little strum, that's probably a good way to go. And you can also always add the drop G and do some bass runs too. I hope that helps. And if you guys have more questions about that, put it in the chat. I'll be glad to answer more. All right. Those are the questions that we have for now. Maybe now would be a good time to do the raffle, and any last call questions, folks can throw those in while we do that.
Let's do it.
All right.
Got my little hat with the raffle, and let's see what we got. And I've mixed together May and June lessons. First, okay, we've got Andrew. And Andrew, he didn't quite complete, but we had so few people that completed that did for June. We're on vacation and didn't complete. I gave him a little extra leadway, so he almost completed the month. So I included him in there. Andrew, you've got you a $50 gift card, and who else do we got?
Go, Andrew.
Dora, Dora,
right.
you've got yourself a gift card as well.
Very
And
cool.
I'm happy to send each of you Amazon $50 gift card, so you can buy some guitar picks or something.
Or amp plug, or
Amp
put it
plug.
towards the audio interface. Very cool.
Okay, let's see. Are there any more questions before we close up for today?
I see a question. Someone's asking, is cadence guitar better? I'm not sure I know what that means. Thomas, do you?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I don't know what the cadence guitar is. I'll probably look it up after this, but that won't help for now.
Sure. So I don't think we have anything else for the moment. Dora says that she got a raffle already and she'd like to gift it to someone else if you want to pull one more name.
That's great. Let's see who else is in it. It's very nice, Dora.
Thanks, Dora. That's
Appreciate
sweet.
that. Okay, let's see who else. Patricia. And yes, she did complete. She completed May, and I didn't get her in there. So, Patricia, you're in. Thanks to Dora. Thank you. That was really nice.
All right. Well, I think that's it. I think everyone, hope you guys took something from today's lesson. I know I did. I learned a lot.
Got it, Tim. Very good. Okay. That explains why not many people completed it.
There you go.
Okay.
Oh, one final question before we go. Any recommendation of a site to go to for chords and tabs? I like echords.com.
Okay. I don't do that often, so I think on me it's better.
Yeah.
I do go to Ultimate Guitar sometimes, so I do know that.
I'll tell you a really cool one. There's a website called, oh no, I just had it in my brain. Wait. Chordify. Chordify.
Oh, yeah. You showed me that one.
I swear by Chordify. I love Chordify. So what I love is basically Chordify links with YouTube. So you're able to search a song that you want to play, and then you can play with the song, and you can either follow it along, like it'll show you little squares and when to play each chord, or you can set it up so it'll show you diagrams for those chords. You can change if you want ukulele, piano, or guitar. Chordify is a great site. I actually have like a paid membership for it because it's so useful for my lessons, because most of my kids want to learn like pop stuff. So Chordify, Chordify. And Shulamit says she also loves Chordify. It's a great website.
Oh, cool. Okay. So, yeah, I remember you mentioned that before. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Good question.
All
Okay.
right. I think that wraps up July.
Thank you all for being with us today. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you, Ami, for joining in.
Absolutely.
And for your ukulele expertise.
Happy to help.
We'll be back next month, the first Thursday of the month, and I'll keep an eye on those when the actual month finishes up in the lesson program as well. Thank you all again, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Feel free to submit questions in the entire month, and of course we're going to have this recorded, so even if you're not on the live show, you can check it out and get my answers and check out some other answers.
Awesome.
Bye for now.
Bye, y'all.
Take care.